Hey, how you doing today? Denise Wellick-Peterson, Hormone Boot Camp. So, I wanted to make sure you saw what I was sitting in front of because I'm about ready to go have coffee with one of my good friends. But today we are going to talk about coffee and, more specifically caffeine, I suppose, and the effects on menopause. So, why do we even care if I drink coffee or not? Well, because coffee raises your cortisol levels. Why do we care about cortisol? Well, cortisol is there to help us save our life, right? In our 10,000-year-old system, if a tiger was chasing you, cortisol was released and you would be able to run for your life, right? Now, if you are running for your life, you also don't need to be making any babies and you don't need to be using your digestive tract. So anything you've just eaten has got to be stored so you can run for your life, or there might not be another day to run for, right? Now, if you're not running off this cortisol that's giving you all this extra energy, we are storing it. And you know what happens as we store it? It starts to build up in the system. So much so that the average 50-year-old has 50 times more cortisol in their system than the average 30-year-old. Now, why is this such a bummer? Why do we care? Well, cortisol increases anxiety. Cortisol helps us to store fat because, like I said, don't need all that food in your digestive tract. Got to store it. We're being chased by the tiger. Your hot flashes are going to be even hotter. Your night sweats are going to be sweatier. Your sleepless nights even sleeplessier. Because why? We're running from a tiger. Remember, don't need to sleep if you're running from a tiger. Your heart palpitations, your heart is going to race. And anxiety. Getting back to that anxiety. A lot of people, this is a really big deal. We don't want to feel super anxious. So, how does this play into our coffee and menopause? Or caffeine? Whatever your caffeine of choice is, right? So, don't get me wrong. Coffee's a big deal to me. I enjoy coffee, and I'm not going to give it up. At least not on a permanent basis. I don't see that happening, right? But I want you to think about, before you have that first cup of coffee in the morning, just like sugar, if you have a donut on an empty stomach, what happens? You have a sugar spike, which is immediately followed by an insulin spike trying to keep your brain alive, right? Well, just like that, if the first thing you drink is cortisol, is caffeine in the morning, you're going to have a cortisol spike. Ooh, tiger's still there. And then if that cortisol spikes, because you don't have anything else in your stomach, it's going to be a huge spike and you're going to be more anxious all day long. You're going to have the shakes, you're going to have the jitters, right? So eat something before that first cup of coffee. You don't have to have a full-on omelet, but what if you had a hard-boiled egg? That's going to blunt the spike, right? Just like if you had a hard-boiled egg before the donut, instead of spiking way up here, it's only going to spike and it's going to waver off. Same with the cortisol. Instead of a huge spike, it's going to waver off, right? So eat something before you have that first cup of coffee. Now, I can already hear some of you because, it drives me nuts when my mom says, I can drink coffee right up till the time I go to bed and still go to sleep. I don't know how that works. Not in my world. I have to be totally done with coffee by noon. Yeah, I'm having tea at the coffee shop. Right? If I'm not done by noon, I know I'm not getting to sleep tonight. But my question for you is, do you know that you know that? Or are you chalking your sleepless nights up to, well, I'm in menopause, so I just don't sleep as well? Or could it be that you're putting something in the system that is exaggerating the sleepless nights, right? So a couple times a year, I go through a reset, a hormone reset, where I take out several things, but one of the things is coffee. Because even though I know it doesn't affect me, I want to, let's clear the sludge out and let's see what's happening. And I've learned over the years, because I've been doing this a couple times a year for several years, that don't go cold turkey. 3 cups of coffee or more, don't go cold turkey. That's terrible. Oh, Lord. So I start weaning myself off it before I cut the day, right? And I had a really interesting experience last year when I did this. On the second day of no caffeine, my head wouldn't work. It didn't hurt. It just didn't work. My body didn't even work. I was like, oh my God, Literally, I was like walking through quicksand all day. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had this much coffee, literally that much coffee, like a sip of whatever was it, just a little sip. And my brain came alive. My body came alive. I was like, oh my God, look at how much that caffeine is affecting me, right? Like that my brain could go from 0 to 700 in literally 2 sips. It did not take much. Totally kicked up. So that kind of frightened me and made me very aware that I am more affected by caffeine than I thought. Now, also during these hormone resets that I do, it's about 2 weeks with no caffeine that I for sure do during the reset. And it always amazes me once I get past that day where I can't think. 3-4 days later, my sleep gets so much better. So much better. It's fabulous. Now, why is this important? Well, because if you're not sleeping and you never thought coffee affected you and now you know coffee affects you, now you're making a choice. Now you can decide if you want to sleep better. You need to decide, are you going to sleep better or are you going to give up coffee? Right? So that's one reason that it's really important to figure it out. I haven't given up coffee yet. I can't remember the other reason. Whatever. Give the coffee up for a couple days to figure it out, to see if your anxiety lessens, to see if your hot flashes lessen, to see how what you are doing actually affects your body. Now, the other thing I want to make sure you know, and I see my friend just got here, so I got to go, is some people have the MTHFR gene. MTHFR. This means you can't digest coffee or caffeine no matter what. And even the smallest amount of caffeine at 4 a.m. is going to mean you don't sleep tonight at 9 p.m. So it's another thing that you can kind of track and see if that affects you. Any further questions on caffeine and menopause, be sure to drop them in the notes. Be sure to tell your friends. I'll be back next week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the Lunchtime Lives and Menopause. Have a fantastic afternoon.